The Bass Fishing League, also known as the BFL, has been a tournament series that's been around for a long time across the country. And I'm saying out of all the participants in this series, I'm saying less than 1% has made $100,000 in tournament earnings. Well, our guest today, Jamey Black, just hit that feat. And what helped him get there was his big win that he just had, the 2-day tournament at Lake Hamilton. Guys, Jamey's not just been successful in the BFLs, though. He's also won multiple tournaments in the Mr. Bass Series. He's also been successful in the Trader Bill's Team Series, where he has recently been the angler, recently in 2022 was part of the Angler of the Year for that series. He's also been successful in the ABA Series as well. And guys, this is just a little bit about Jamey, okay? But hitting that $100,000 mark in the BFLs, big time, okay? That's pretty neat to say that, hey, I've made $100,000 in tournaments when it is not your one job, okay? Guys, me and Jamey on this podcast talk about how fishing's changed and how he's had to adapt with the change, as he's, been fishing competitively for a long time, going with, 2D sonar before 2D sonar to how he had to learn the live scope to compete. Guys, we also talk about how Jamey, he shares, how he is a father, husband, how right now his son's growing up right in front of his eyes, and he's just, enjoying every minute of it. And then, of course, as you guys, if you are familiar with Jamey, he has his own lure company, Black Custom Lures, and we talk about the Alabama rig, how it evolved. We go into depth on his buzz baits, new buzz baits, and guys, even me recently, I've been using his lures, giving them a shot the past couple months. The Widowmaker, I have a few videos out where I've used the Widowmaker, and then also recently at a trip I took at Millwood, the Brainbuster caught some good fish for me. Jamey's also been kind enough to give me a code that will save you guys on an order. So if you go to blackcustomlures.com, use the code FishCoach on your order, you will save, and then also it'll be able to help support the podcast, okay? Guys, like I said, there's a lot in this podcast. I've appreciated having Jamey on. And guys, thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any comments, questions. Leave them down below on the YouTube channel, or if you're on Spotify or Amazon, Apple Music, however you're listening. I appreciate it. Real quick, the podcast is brought to you by Futural Marine. Guys, Futural Marine is your #1 dealer in the state of Arkansas. They can serve you in any of your boating needs. Check them out. I have their link in the description as well. Now, hey, let's get into the podcast with Jamey. You're on today, man, and right away, I see all those trophies behind you, man. And you won a big one recently. Talk about that.
Yeah, I did. I ended up winning the BFL Super Tournament on Lake Hamilton a few weeks back. And so that was a big one. It was pretty crazy, pretty stressful event for me. But it was one of those, when it's your time to win, you're going to win, That's what I've been saying. It's just, it was just in the cards for me to win that time. So,
Man, and it's neat to see for a 2-day event. A lot of these events y'all fish are solo. That one's a 2-day, so I know that has to mean a little bit more to you.
Yeah. Well, it does, and well as anyone the caliber of fishermen that was in that tournament, and just the guys we fish against normally. Anyone you could just put a hat full of names and pull one out, and any of these guys around here could win a tournament on a given day. So, but yeah, it was pretty good. I'd been leading Angler of the Year 2 years in a row going into that tournament, and I bombed, and so I had to take out a little revenge on it. This year I missed a tournament, so I wasn't even in the running for Angler of the Year, so I didn't have any pressure or anything. And so I approached it differently. I knew what was going to happen with all the pressure. People get there and they beat on the fish, shallow fish all week, and those fish are hard to catch on Saturday. And I decided I wasn't going to do that. I was going to stay off the bank, and my original plan was to live scope them, and just catch them with a little. I was using a little little J minnow big head. I forget the name of it, but using that, you can see the packs of shad. They may be over 50 foot of water just out in the middle of nowhere, and there'd be bass under them, and you could throw that little deal out there and catch them on live scope. But it got in the tournament, I couldn't. That's really what kind of got me behind the 8-ball in the tournament, because I could catch them schooling with it and just live scoping them, and they wouldn't bite at tournament day. And my co-angler had like 3 or 4 fish in the boat, and I'm sitting there, this stupid little thing, So I finally had to switch over to a top water. You just had to hit them on the head when they schooled. I lost about a 4 pounder the first day that would have gave me a couple more pounds of weight than I had in first day. And then um, anyway, it was about 11 o'clock. My coat, I had about 10 something pounds in the boat, and I had like 3 pounds. At 11 o'clock first day, and I'm like, well, we got to make a change. They quit schooling where I was at, so I couldn't catch them on live scoping them. So we went. And I ran a spot and it didn't work, and I pulled on some brush to start throwing a drop shot just to try to fill out my limit, to try to make the second day. Well, when I stopped, I knew they'd been schooling in this area. Well, when I shut down, then they started schooling all over the place. But I ended up getting my limit then. And it was about probably 1:30 or so, and I had my limit and was culling. And I had probably 8.5 pounds or so. And I decided to just go to the bank and give it a try, and I had been, you can always catch them on a horny toad, buzzbait, frog, and all that kind of stuff, and just burning the bank up. And went down there and got on a stretch bank and came across a little matted patch of grass there and threw that. I was on a spro frog, and I threw it up in there and it kabloosh, and it was about 3.8, and that gave me the weight I had. I should have been leading probably if I'd have caught the other one I lost, but I was in 5th place at the first day. And, I really didn't think I was going to win or anything. I thought, well, I made the second day. I'm going to get a check, whatever. So, so anyway, we get to the next day, and I draw out Leland Nixon, Larry Nixon's brother.
Mm-hmm.
And Leland is a really good fisherman. He's fished as a boater forever. But this year, due to family stuff and obligations and whatnot, he decided to go as calling gear so he didn't have time to mess with it. And he had been over there that week, and he'd found the same school of fish that I'd found. And he had everything dialed in with a certain top water and his rod and reel, and he could throw that thing a mile. And
Wow.
we started on my first spot, and neither one of us had much of anything, I don't think. And then stayed there about an hour. Then we left, and spent the rest of the day in where I caught him the first day, or the end of the first day. We spent the whole day there the second day and just stayed in that area. And he had a limit, and I had zero. This second afternoon, I didn't have a fish, and he had about 10 something, 11 pounds. And I'm like, Leland, you're killing me, bro. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was doing what he's supposed to do. He was catching the fish, And they'd not headbutt mine out of the water, jump over it. I'd hook them, they'd come off. I mean, it's just that kind of deal. And he gave me a bait, the same bait he was using. I'm really not at liberty to say. He probably might not want me to say it on the podcast. So it's his bait.
That's right.
But it was an old bait, like a Larry Nixon special, And, he gave me one, and I mean, the fish just choking this thing.
When you are fishing at the lake, you never know when you will have an accident or the outcome of the accident. Now, we always hope to not have one that could be potentially life-threatening. Life insurance to me gives me the comfort to know my wife and kids will not have to worry about my income in case of an accident that I have no control over. If you're interested in life insurance policy, then give my good friend Michael Howard from Farm Bureau in Nashville, Arkansas a call. My good friend Big Fish Howard will give you a quote today that will be the best for your situation. There will be more information in the description below. Thank you.
I caught all 5 of my keepers on the bait he gave me the second day. So, I mean, there's a good guy for you right there. And he, that's co-angler boater working together, so he ended up winning first place. And then I ended up place. So I had 11 something pounds. I think he had 11 something pounds. So I figured up, I think I had 45 pounds of fish in my boat weighed in for 2 days on Hamilton. That's pretty good.
Which is good this time of year.
Yeah. So.
Well, hey, I'll say real quick a couple of things. I know this time of year, into late summer, if you lose a 4-pounder and win, wow.
Yeah.
But I will say,
I've lost one time. I fished that super tournament for years. I've been doing this a long time. There was one year I lost about a 6 or 7 pounder. There's two different super tournaments. One of them was on a rivet. I threw down the side of a dock, and it was probably a 6-pounder, and it ate it. I set the hook on a double frog hook. Fish jumps out of the water. I'm fighting him. He comes up, head shakes, and it comes out of his mouth. And I mean, that was just sickening. And then the other one was on my buzz bait, same type deal. I was going down the side of a dock and kabloosh, blows it up. And I crank him a few cranks and it comes off. And I just watch him swim back under the dock. And I'm like, oh my God. But so I've had some heartbreak. I was due on that tournament.
Well, man, and it sounds too. I've just talked to you recently. And I've always, I've always seen you in the tournament results. I've heard good things about you from other anglers and even people down in your neck of the woods in Sheridan. Thank you. Some of your customers, not gonna say their names, spoke highly of you. But for you to have a co-angler and for him to catch 11 pounds or so and then maybe give you a bait, that must have been for the reason potentially you treated some co-anglers good before. Maybe you've gave a co-angler one of your Widowmakers or a buzz bait. So it always comes back.
Oh, I mean, there's just this, there's a couple guys that like to rib me on Facebook and stuff that I don't like co-anglers, man. I don't mind co-anglers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like that deal that worked in my benefit. You don't have you could have a BFL with no co-anglers and I'd be ecstatic.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being is just because what I did. My guy in the back's catching all the fish. He gives me a bait. I win the tournament. I would have zeroed probably. You know what I'm saying? If I wouldn't have zeroed, but I probably wouldn't have won the tournament. Somebody else would have if I didn't have a co-angler giving me a bait in the back of the boat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just like when two people go to the lake. Well, I'm throwing a trap or whatever, and he picks up and starts dragging a worm. He starts catching them. What am I going to do? I'm going to pick up a worm, and start dragging it. I mean, it's that's Mr. Bass finally went. When Trader Bill's bought it and that outfit, they went to no co-anglers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great, great trail to fish. And, it just, when you, the other things I don't like about co-anglers is, you feel a little bit of pressure. You don't want them to zero. You want them to catch a fish and have a day. And so you don't want to front end them. You don't want to parallel a bank. You fish differently when you're by yourself. Than you do with somebody in the back of your boat, but nobody's ever gotten my boat and had a bad time because of me. I mean, today it was because they were just got up on the wrong side of bed or something,
Oh no, I have a great co-angler story. I have a couple. I'll share one where I felt bad for my pro. I didn't fish co-angler much when I was young. I kind of got out of it because of a couple bad trips. Not going to go into it fully, but I had one pro cuss me pretty good one time. And I just couldn't throw anywhere. So I was trying to throw. We're fishing Washita 7 foot low timber jerkbait. Yeah. And if I threw this way, by the time he's trolling it, I couldn't work it. So I was throwing ahead anyway. But there's my first co-angler event I ever fished. I was 16, just turned 16. Lake Washita, January tournament. Had a good dude. I forgot his name. He don't fish tournaments anymore. Good dude. We go to a point. And he caught a limit pretty quick. This one, Washita had grass. And oh, my bad. It still has grass, but this was on the west end of the lake. Right. So there's no grass over there, right? And he started catching him on a hair jig. I don't have a hair jig. I go to pick up my trap, though, and he's like, no, don't you throw a crankbait on my fish. I was like, yes, I won't. So he gave me a hair jig, and he caught his limit. And because I had a big football jig, but they weren't eating it. But he gave me a hair jig. Dude, I threw it up there. Caught a 5-pounder, and he didn't catch it. He didn't catch a 5. He caught a bunch of 2s. I felt bad. I'm like, dude, this dude just gave me a hair jig. I caught a 5. Then,
dude, I used to hand tie hair jigs and sell them.
Yep, they're great.
Hand making anything because I really don't have time.
Yeah.
And I've tried to get the factory that's making my baits to do them, but they're not right. And right now, hard to even get bucktail. You can't even find bucktail anywhere. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, I mean, I've had some magical days on hair jigs. People like, hair jig, whatever. Yeah, I mean, dude, you better have one because there's days when they won't buy nothing else.
But that. Yeah. And to make this trip even more crazy, so then he's kind of on the point, and I felt bad, and I had a spoon on, just an old, small, spoon. And how the boat was sitting as he was moving it, we're above a brush pile. Brush piles in 50 foot. were thrown up there in 20 foot on that grass edge. And I was like, hey, there's a brush pile down here. And, I'm seeing on the 2D sonar. Now, this is back
Yeah.
2000, this is back 2006, so 5 or 6. He's like, yeah, there's a brush pile down there. And just by how the 2D was moving, it looked like there was a fish just above it. You see the line, right? And I grab my spoon, drop it down there, catch a 4. And then I drop it again, catch a 3. Now, this was a 3-fish limit for co-anglers. I was done. I sat in the boat the rest of the day. Like, after I got that 3, I was like, hey, dude.
What did your 3 weigh?
I think 11.88. I got beat by 2 ounces.
Oh, no, you shouldn't sit down on that.
Well, yeah, I know. What also, like, those 2 big fish, or the 5 was fine, but those 2 I caught were upside down. And we didn't have a fizz. I didn't want to try to do something, and they fizzed them at the weigh-in, but I was done. But, man, anyway, so it was a crazy day.
I mean, that's just being observant as a co-angler. That's what you're supposed to do. I mean, he's not going to catch. He wasn't never in a million years going to throw with that.
No.
So.
And then I already felt bad for throwing at his grass fish. And anyway, but man, I appreciate having you on. And we're going to kind of go everywhere. That's a good intro right there. So I see one thing I'll say real quick, just a testament to you. And like I know Timmy as well, and other Arkansas anglers. But man, you're competitive not only in the BFL, but I see it right behind you. Mr. Bass, Trader Bill's, man. And you've been fishing after listening to the other podcast you're on, man. It's kind of cool. Like, you've been fishing for a long time. So you've seen the lakes change. You've had to change with the fish, man. Just talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, being an old guy, sometimes it puts you at a disadvantage because you're fishing so many memories.
Yes.
I used to run up in the back of the South Fork River in the wintertime and fish drops and creek channel swings and stuff. There's none there. They're all silted in now. You can't, I mean, so it's nothing like it used to be. I mean, so just like you're talking about with the grass, people, a lot of you younger folks don't know, but I mean, there was grass all the way up to Twin Creeks.
That's wild.
In the South Fork River, there was grass all the way up in the North River, North arm of the river, and all the way up in Iron Forks. I mean, it was beautiful. The coontail, the Eladia.
Yeah.
And I was just getting really good at fishing all that, cranking it. Me and a buddy, the regular partner, Scott Boatwright, we fished team tournaments together, like starting with little bass club stuff out of a aluminum boat, from the 90s, So we were over at Washita one day, and I'm sure everybody knows Duke Gun on Steve Howard and all. They kind of brought to life the whole deep little end, cranking the deep little end on the grass, and you get you kind of get out there and you 45 it and you bounce it off the grass, and the good grass, you hit it and it just pops off, and then the fish react to that. And we had a day on Washita. We had 23 pounds on deep little ends in a bass club tournament, and I lost a monstrosity that tied me up, and some timbers broke off, and we would have had even a bigger sack. But but all that's gone. So you're like, well, I can't do that anymore. So. And then the A-rig comes out, and that changes everything. So, if you're not throwing an A-rig, you're not winning. And then, so there's so many things that happen. Then live scope comes out. You don't have a live scope to get beat, So, the A-rig came out before live scope. I was catching them on the A-rig with sonar, before all this stuff happened. So, I was fishing Mr. Bass. Spencer Shepard had his comeback, a few years back before he got back on the pro trail after he had family issues and stuff. Well, that year, I finished second to him in that for the year in Mr. Bass, and he had live scope like the second half of the year, and I did, and I'm like, he was talking about, hey, you can see the thing up there, and I was watching the fish go around a tree, and I'm like, what? I was like, no way, and I finally, I said, I'm not getting my butt beat again. I went and got live scope if I could. I took all week and just, amazing, learning with the live scope, and just, I can go out there now and just, I'm still, but, I've got pretty good with it, and, had like that. If you're not learning and keeping up with the young guys, then you might as well stay home and watch TV. You're gonna be donating.
Man, you're right. Like, and when and people that know me real well, they know, and I'll tell them up front. So, like, when I was coaching high school football and in college before, and when I did the high school coaching, teaching, I fished a lot, and I didn't do the tournaments as much. I got into high school fishing and took the kids and did that. But I fished a lot. I just didn't do tournaments. But once I got into this new deal last May of editing, making content, and I was on the water more, there was a point of last year. Now I was fishing Millwood a lot, and sometimes you don't need all the electronics for Millwood. And I grew up fishing offshore, doing that stuff 2D sonar. But then when I got to Millwood, my skills kind of went away, because Millwood to me, as you know, when I moved down here, Millwood was a new animal, and I loved it, and I took it in because I grew up fishing Ouachita to Gray, deep clear rock. I get here and I'm like, forget all that. I'm fishing a frog and punching.
Right.
And so when I started doing the content, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying. I mean, that's kind of what I put my teeth on. I grew up, fishing bass club tournaments like down at Dumas and
Yeah.
Copile and
Yep.
Marathon and all that. And that was back then. Marathon and Copile was full of grass. I mean, people probably don't remember, but you can probably Google it. There was like 13 pounders caught in Copile.
Yeah.
It was the size of the fish that in the Arkansas River. And then I don't know what happened to the grass. I mean, there's a lot of theories on it, but there's a lot of crop and things, a lot of crop dusting, things like that. I don't know if some of that stuff got into there and it kills all the grass or what, but that place was a fish. And man, it was crazy.
Yeah. And I remember when I first got into like keeping up, I was in high school and I saw on the Get 5 page a tournament down there where like 20 pounds was like 13th place. And I was just like, wow. And then all of a sudden it kind of just dissipated. But but when I started making the content, I then was like, hey, I'm on the water more. I got Live Scope. I've had it for a year or two. I was like, I want to really get this dialed in. And so it started last fall. I'd get my stuff done, and then I'd just go graph and scope. And then it started clicking about February-ish, a little bit. Went down to OH Ivy, and then when I came back, March, April, like I didn't even go bedfish really. I did one day at Millwood or two, but like I just straight graphed and scope still. Then it hit about end of April, May, it all clicked. And like that's all it's crazy. Like how we caught fish Monday when I took Coach Callie. And
I saw that.
And he's been fishing for a long time, but after he got to watch what we did, and we didn't pick on the school that I've been catching at this lake, we had to find a whole new, they were gone, right? Like the one group, I call it Disneyland where they were at. They weren't there. And I was like, dude, we got to go find them. And then it took us about an hour and a half. When we found them, and found them on the down imaging, side imaging, then I dropped that scope. I was like, hey, here we go. After about like an hour, he was like, I am never fishing this lake the same. He goes, this is unreal. I was like, now, hey, when it happens, it does. I was like, but it's not always this way. But since I've been lucky to be on the water a lot, and it's easier on smaller lakes. Now I know like a DeGray, Ouachita, like people like you and like some of the Beans, right, and Poes, Kindies, they've been catching them before, but now they kind of know, and then they can use the scope. And so someone I know like even a Matt Baker who's still young and he's been fishing a long time, but he's young. He still has to go out and try to find, and now he's got that other tool dialed in though. I mean that's no doubt. But
young guys to have that all the mapping. I grew up line up a tree with whatever you make a triangulation. I had those little. I started with a flash. Go around that thing. Then it went to you got a hummingbird or an eagle, like a black LCD with look like a tar. The LCD block big. I mean, it's just what we have now compared to then. Insane. The fishing was a lot better, and there's a lot more fish. you could catch them. I mean, a lot better. But I just don't think there's fish in the lakes now that there was 30 years ago.
I agree. And one thing I've been seeing in the world I'm in, I get to listen to a lot of podcasts, talk to people, and I'll say it on the podcast. Um, a lot of people in the state want to go after like the Game and Fish Commission, and I'm not going to be that guy. We can talk about the hybrid stripers. I'm not, but it's interesting to see how like tournaments used to be a 10 fish limit, 8, 5. Now we go to 3 sometimes in the summer. I really think the summer fishing we kill a lot of bass, as in when we catch them, put them in our live well, we go to weigh them in. I don't think a lot of them make it, and I think it's been years of us tournament anglers. And I say us, I don't. I fished one night tournament this year. We had a 24 pounds and one down here to the lake, and like they all swam off. We juice and iced them, but like I feel like they didn't make it. And I
Yeah,
think like Hamilton this year, how many tens were caught by them guys? How many of those
yeah,
made it? And like I talked to there's a biologist from a one of the best fishing states in the country. You can probably guess what that is. He says when you put them dudes in a live well in the summer, they're not making it. Like they might swim off, but they're dead.
yeah,
And and I'm just thinking that it could be us sometimes that we just need to.
yeah.
I don't know. It's tough.
A 10 pound is an old fish. It
Yep.
takes for them to get to 10. Yeah, and Prime Hamilton, right? For whatever reason, you don't hear about Washita. Be full of them, but you hear about 6, 7, or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I know. I mean, it's kind of hard. Texas and what they're hunting and all that. I can't have something similar, or buy their, put them here somewhere, I mean, load it full. I don't know. I mean, we could do more. It seems like black bass is kind of times for us, But I mean, you'd be shocked. I grew up. My dad and all my friends were in Grant County back. When I was growing. And I would always want to go to them and stuff like that. First tournament I think I won was with him in basketball. And we won a little basketball deal, and I took then. And but them dudes, man, they had a 10 fish limit, and they got ice. Like, they're and that was the early '80s and stuff. I mean, they kept fish like crazy back. But I mean, you would go to the lake and catch 50 or 60 bass. I mean, it's you go now and hey, I caught 2 or 3. Great day. I mean, it's just not the same. I don't know the answers to why. Maybe live scope showing us a lot of these fish are out just roaming too, not on the bank. You know, just out in the water column, just hanging out, getting away
Yeah.
from it most of the time. So it's kind of crazy.
It
But
is, man. It is. Hell, another note now. Let's talk more. Just for me being friends with you on Facebook, something I see that I think's neat. Just neat, just because I was a high school football coach. But you got a son right now.
yeah,
And now is that your only son? I don't know your kids and all that.
yeah, yeah. That's my only one and only. I waited a little later in life to get married. Uh, he's I'm 53 now, and he's 15. So that's the only one I had, and he's uh, like the perfect kid, man. Straight A dude. He looks like a CQ model. He's a sophomore. I mean, he don't look like his own man. You know, he's a sophomore on the football team. He's been starting both ways. A lot of games. He plays wide receiver and cornerback. I'm just, I can't ask for a better child. I mean, he just never gets in trouble. He already knows who's hanging out, drinking, doing the wrong things. Things like that. And it's just, it's unreal. I'm just so proud of him.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
yeah,
It's a fun time for your life. I know, just because
yeah,
I coached it and I got to
yeah,
always be a part of the parents and see it and see the kids grow up. But now, me as a dad, I got a 20-month-old, and man, like I enjoy every day, and I see it how fast it can go. And so I
It
know for
does.
you, it's
That's
there.
life. Just man, just trying to day to day grind, and you work. Your wife works, and your kid goes to school. I mean, it goes by so quick. It's really crazy how fast. It was like he was a baby yesterday. Now he's fixing to start driving. So it's crazy. And yeah, I mean, I coached. I coached his class when they were third through sixth grade for Pee Wee. I helped
Mhm.
coach, I wasn't on the coach, but I really did enjoy it, man. I'm like, man, I might should have tried to do coaching, 'cause I liked it.
Man,
But
it's fun. I enjoyed it, and I'd still, which
yeah,
I do the fishing. I do the fishing, and I still stay in touch with the football coaches.
yeah,
But one thing I realized, and it didn't matter. Like, so I coached for, man, I don't know. I coached a long time before I had a kid. I mean, well, I guess 12 years, right? So I worked a lot, worked hard, worked a lot. But I didn't have a kid to worry about. My wife was in school, and then when she got out, she was working, and so it kind of was nice. But then I see when you have kids and that gets going, how it can kind of pull, and then it's just opened my eyes to I work too much sometimes for a football game. It's a Friday night or a Saturday. That college football, I did it for 5 years. It's a whole nother level. Now, I wasn't making no Razorback money. I was at
right.
Henderson State, but
Well,
it's,
that's right,
yeah.
right. Pearson State.
Hmm.
I actually walked on. Uh, I was on the same team with Paul Callie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and Gus Malzahn.
And Gus.
Yep, I was a walk on. I don't remember what year Paul Callie was, but I was, I'm like 5'10", 5'11", and back then I was in the best shape of my life when I went up there. And I think I got dehydrated. I mean, it was like boot camp, man. It
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
around. It was 2 days, and it was Sporty Carpenter,
Uh-huh.
and he was the line coach and the head coach, and he worked our butts off. I got dehydrated, and I think I got down to close to 200 pounds, man. And I was trying to be an offensive lineman, and they had 6'4", 6'5", 300 something pounders. I'm like, oh Lord, I picked the wrong. I should have did something else. And I held dummies for the fall semester, and then I got out of there. I said, I'm outmatched here. This ain't gonna happen for me.
Yeah,
So
and that's true too today. There's a lot of kids. So after I got there and I coached, and by my third year, I was the Arkansas recruiting coordinator. I was kind of like the Arkansas liaison, and like there's good football players in the state, but they don't get like at Henderson how good they are. And
yeah,
like I went back to a game Saturday, and I go once a year right now. I'll go twice this year, but I'll go back to the OBU game. But like I'm out there on the middle of the field with Coach Maxfield, and we're talking, and I'm watching these dudes throw, catch, and I tell them, I'm like, hey, I forget. Like, I was at the Nashville game Friday on the sideline. I'm out here on the sideline, and how much bigger, faster these dudes
oh
are.
yeah,
I was like, and people, and like Nashville's a good football town, and I was like, now we have one playing down there. We have three on the team. One was starting, and he was for us a left tackle, and he was a big old kid, 6'4", 260, and he's now like 280. But he was the smallest one on that offensive line. And so it's a whole nother level, man. It is. That's cool about your kids. Your kid, does he your son he plays sports, but does he fish much, or did he just kind of say, Dad, that's your deal?
he's kind of weird. He hasn't wanted to do the high school fishing. He's had some of his buddies, hey, get your dad to be our coach, and you fit. He's had people hit him up. He's just doesn't want to get up in the morning, man. He's not a morning person.
That's
And
it.
now when we go to Florida, we have a saltwater boat too, and we go down there and catch red snapper and stuff. And that dude will get up at daylight, before daylight, and get up, and he's ready to go out the door saltwater fishing. But I can't
Hmm.
around here. I can't get him. He's fished a couple tournaments with him. I'm like, hey, you get half the money if we win, and we've won a couple little hat tournaments on Hamilton,
Yeah.
I think, and he was excited about that. But I just can't get him super motivated with the fishing stuff right now. But
it's it's all right. Some do it later, some do it early.
I'm not going to push it on him because, as you know, it is kind of an expensive sport to get into.
Yes.
You Smart as he is, he needs to probably do something else anyway. So,
Does he like to deer hunt then? Does he like to hunt? 'Cause I just know where y'all live. Hunting and fishing's it.
oh yeah, yeah. Man, honestly, I do not hunt. I don't hunt anything. When everybody else is hunting, I'm fishing.
That's
I'm on the
right.
lake. I mean, I love fall fishing and fishing in the winter. And that's really why I do so well early in the year because I see where all the tournaments are going to be. Well, I'll
Hmm.
start December, January. Find the grass or whatever needs brush piles, and I'll go out and mark brush piles, and I'll be ready when all the spring tournaments start just because I fish all winter. And I
Hmm.
like to crappie fish too. I'll take a few days and load the freezer with some crappie fillets, and that'll get us through the year usually. So
Oh, good. I'm the same way. I duck hunted some here and there, but man, I straight fish. I like it. Even like deer hunts coming up, and like we're on the lake Monday, and I know it's Monday, but saw one boat, and I know that's because hunting's here. And then,
yeah,
as you know, there'll be some crappie guys, but they're getting their stuff ready in the woods.
right. I have been known to go to deer camp just to hang out at the fire and have a cold
Yeah,
one, that and shoot the bull. But I
yeah.
really think about shooting the deer and cleaning it and messing with it and all that.
Well, man, let's take another turn. Talk about the bait company. Like, how did that come about, man? I mean, I know a little bit about it, and just so people know, you sent me some baits, and I've caught some. That Widowmaker went through a lot of fish catches in their recent trips. I caught some fish on the buzz bait last week. Man, just talk about that, and you got a lot going on with it.
Well, um, my dad and all his friends. My dad used to make spinner baits and jigs and stuff like that. So I grew up around do it molds and lead pots, and he would even, they went to Mexico fishing a few times, and they'd get big old flip tail worms and like make them 16 inches, and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
they'd have plaster Paris molds. So I was always into, making stuff, and I always kind of made my own this or that, spinner based jigs, whatever. Um, well, then really, I can't remember if it was hair jigs or the A rigs. I think it was the Alabama. I'd been making hair jigs for a while, but the Alabama rig came along, and couldn't get them, and I had all the stuff there sitting there for making spinner baits. I had a spinner bait mold. I'm like, all this is there's one out there now. I forget, Lucky Strike or somebody. It's just a spinner bait head. I just took a router, routed out my spinnerbait mold, and laid 5 wires and coming out where the hook would come out, and made a little line tie coming out the nose of it. It was lead, and heck, boom, I had an Alabama rig, and I mean, I was selling them for like $35 a piece.
Yeah.
There's no had them, you couldn't get them. And I was making as soon as Elias won that tournament, just blew it all away. They gunned it or something. Everybody's like freaking out. Nobody even knew what it was. And then like finally it took like a week, and they put it on Bassmaster or something. And he's showing a picture of it, and I'm like, I got that. I can make that. So I made that and started making them. I had people from all over getting them from me. They were kind of junky. I mean, they were just it was what it was. But I had some guys take some up. They had a Mr. Bass Classic, I think, on Bull Shoals or Table Rock or somewhere up north. A couple guys almost won the tournament on it, and the ones of mine. But then, Cody Kemp, I gave Cody Kemp one, and he took it over to Lake DeGray. And that was back when Lake DeGray had a weird slot limit or something.
Yep.
Can't remember. Was it
It
yeah,
was
they were over like 16,
16.
yeah, 13 to 16.
That was
You
it.
couldn't, in the 13 to 16, you had to throw them back or something. It
That's
was
right.
hard to get 15 inches. It was something like that, some weird thing. Um, well, I give him one. He calls me like at noon the next day. It's like, dude, I've caught like 20 something over 16. I probably got 20 something pounds. This, this unheard of at that time. The gray
Yep.
wasn't fishing. It was like low. The water was low. It was in the fall, about like this time of year, probably. It was after, he won in October, I think. So it was probably October, early November. I'm like, dude, I'm coming over tomorrow. So I made some more. We went up fishing the next day. I'd never seen anything like it, man. You know, mine didn't even have the blades on them or anything yet,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd see a little twig sticking out of the water, you know, like top of a brush pile or something. You'd throw by it and just burn it. Bam, bam, bam. You'd have three on there. I mean, two or three every time. I mean, the big ones. You're like, oh my god, you know. Yeah, so he kind of come up, hey, let's put some blades on. I'm like, wow, they're eating the hell out of you like it. You know, so he come up with the Spinderella thing. You know, that was kind of his deal, and he sold it to another fella. Well, I didn't like it because it was lead and it only had four wires, and you throw it in a helicopter like crazy. And he was like, oh no, no. Okay. So I made one out of. We talked about it, and he helped me, and we figured out plastic. You know how to make a plastic head. You know, you had to go through all this,
Yeah.
you know, internet research to find how you make a two-part plastic and all that. You know, then you had to make your mold. You know, so there was a lot to it. You know, and so anyway, I figured all that out, and I made one with 5 wires, 4 blades. You know, the wire coming out the back of the head, and you know, it's been killer since the day one. You know, my original version had 4 blades coming out of the back of the head and rounded wires, but for some reason people liked the wires on the arms, so I just started making it that way. Either way, the old way works too. You know, it looks like a little school of bait. You know, when there's 4 blades right there together, and but I've even made some with 4 blades and 4 arm blades. I mean, I've made all kinds. I've made every configuration A rig you could ever think of. But so settled on the Widowmaker. But so anyway, so that went on. Yeah, I'm kind of being long winded, I guess. So that went on, and then I got into making buzz baits, and I come up with the deal with the brass clacker, you know,
Mm-hmm.
my horn coder deal. And I'm making all this stuff by hand. And then they wanted me to start making hair jigs, selling hair jigs. And I'm like, dang, you know, so I'm doing all this stuff by myself, by hand. And I have an insurance job too, you know. So I'm like, this, you know, now this went on for several years, and I'm the whole time looking for a way to mass produce these things. And I had pros ordering my baits, you
Yeah.
know. I set up my website and all that, and people heard about them. Zach Burge gave me a couple plugs here and there, and I had different pros ordering, and every time a pro would order, I'd drop a little handwritten note in there to them, hey, thanks for ordering, da da da. Do you know of any way or anybody, you know, where I can get something mass produced, you know, or have a connection or whatever? And I won't say his name. I don't know if he wants to be, you know, for that, but one of them responded back to me and said, hey, here's so and so and so and so. Give them a call. I'm sure they could pray, you know. I mean, it was like bing, boom, bam, and I'm getting stuff mass produced after trying for 4 or 5 years, you know.
Yeah.
Because you can't just go to the internet, hey, I want to get, you know, nobody wants you to know that, you know,
Yep.
because the people that are already doing it, they're like, oh, I don't want any more competition, you know, so it's not out there. You can't find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, so that started, and then, you know, I've done all this out of pocket, you know, just I saved my money when I was making stuff by hand. You know, I haven't borrowed any money from the bank to do this. You know, I'm still doing it by myself. And so, you know, I'll make these runs of baits, and then when they sell, I'll keep the money, and then the next run of baits or whatever, and then spend the excess and all that. So that's where I'm at now. I mean, I've got a stockpile of stuff I need to sell. I know that. I do have a lot of baits because, you know, with this biodynamics and the live scope and all that, it kind of hurt bait sales a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting on a pile of buzz baits. I've got it now. I'm stocked up with A-rigs, jig heads for the winter, so I should be good on that. So I've got the original Widowmaker, and then I've got a new beefed up version called Gen 2. It's got stronger wires, bigger diameter arm,
Mm-hmm.
or bigger gauge wire on the arm. So it's not going to be as flexible, but it's not going to tear up either. There's no way you can tear this thing up. I mean, I should have named it the Indestructible A-rigs. I mean, I can't see how anybody could tear it up. And then I've also got a BFL rig coming that's got, well, it's not, it's here. I've got it. It's got the 3 wires. It's got 5 wires with 5 blades, but it's got 3 live wires and then 2 shorter arm wires for your dummy baits that'll go
Mm-hmm.
up top. So you have 3, you know, 2 short ones, 3 behind. So So that's where I'm at on that. I came out with the Brain Buster buzz bait, which is it's a head clacker buzz bait, but it's got a little brass ball inside the head, so it's not clacking off lead; it's clacking off brass.
Yeah.
And it makes a total different noise, total different sound. And then I've got the Total Double Up, which is a double bladed buzz. It's two blades back to back, and they click clack off each other. Then they spin around and hit that brass piece, so it's like crazy noise.
It's a
And
good noise. Like I've thrown them all in the past couple trips. That double one, like when I'm holding it, I was like, how's this gonna work? And I don't have a
yeah,
pool at my house. I put baits in the bathtub, but like I can't test a buzz bait. But the first time I threw it, I was sold. I was like, hey, this is different, and I see it now. But holding it, I was just like, okay. But man, like after I've thrown it, yeah,
right.
it's
Well,
nice.
you can fish it, put it in, you kind of get a little jerk or something, and it makes it goes. It kind
Yep.
of makes a weird sound, kind of like shad scattering or something to me is what it sounds like. The first bite I had on my prototype one was a 5 pounder
Oh,
at
nice.
Bullshot. I was like, okay, I think it's gonna work, okay, and so. Um, but anyway, I try to make stuff different. I mean, I'm not getting into jigs or spinnerbait. I mean, there's a bunch of buku of guys around Arkansas. If you want a good jig, hey, there's plenty of guys out there making them. I'm just trying to do different stuff,
Yeah.
that's not out there that makes me unique.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and what was I about to say about it? I just went blank. The selling, that was it. Talking about sales right now, just from our end for what we do, for what I do on the content, and I see all the sales. It was about July, and all of a sudden, people have
yeah,
stopped buying, and now
they
like
have,
and like we talked, the live scope has hurt the buzzbait game and that stuff. Like we seen that, but even like just on our side with all I work with like 6 7 pros on stuff with it, but man, like it was about July that it stopped, and now but we're seeing it now. Like I mean, me for example, this is crazy. So like when I got married in 2015. Ever since we got married, I have an Excel sheet, and I keep up with everything. I budget everything. I know how much groceries are. I can pull up groceries 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and right now it's literally three times the much.
yeah,
And it is wild. Like and so like it's
yeah,
affecting the fishing world or anything of buying.
yeah. I mean, it costs more to gas in your boat and truck to go to the lake and
Mm-hmm.
grab a few out of the thing to go put in your boat, and it's twice as much as it was. I mean, everything. I mean, it's just crazy right now. So hopefully it'll get better. You
Yeah,
know.
it will eventually. It will. Now I told you your jig heads. I like your jig heads. Like and that 1/16 ounce is hard to find.
Right. Nobody makes one with a small hook. I mean,
Yeah.
my whole thing, my stuff's designed. My Widowmaker's small.
Uh
These
huh.
jig heads are small. You can throw like a 2.8 or 2.3 and a 3 point. Whatever. I mean, I throw anything from the small 2.8 to a
Hmm.
3.8. My
Yep.
jig head, and they've got the hook. I went through I came out with a batch of them, and I wasn't happy with them. They're on my web. They're fine. They're fine, but I wasn't 100% happy with it. So I put them on closeout. They're on my website. You can get them for like $3 a pack. You know, uh, they just have a little bit longer throat where the line tie goes into the
Okay.
hook. The throat comes out of the head, and it's a little bit long for me from what I wanted. And I had them redesign the mold and find a different hook where the pretty much the hook eye sits right on top of the lead,
Mm-hmm.
so there's no way it can break or tear up or anything there. And it's a small hook, but it's stout. It's not like a light wire hook, but it's not some big super freaking meat hook. It's
Yeah.
you can throw it with fluorocarbon, and you can throw it with braid, and it's not going to straighten out. You get a 5 pounder on braid, and I'm horsing it in. Well, you got a light wire hook, that fish is coming off. You're going
Yeah.
to straighten out these hooks, man. You're not going to straighten them out. You know, so um, I think it's perfect. For what I my little setup. So
Yeah, and you talked about the work of you doing it all by yourself. So I don't know if you know well, he has your baits in his store. Brad Deal, pharmacist in Murfreesboro, he had
Yeah.
his own spinnerbait jig line, Real Deal custom lures. He just sold
Yeah.
it. That dude. Now I don't know how he did it. He's not a normal human, I don't think. Of course, he sold it. He sold it right after he bought the pharmacy, became the owner, and he was building a house. But like, he would work all night tying these spinnerbaits. Him and his wife. Then he'd go
Yeah.
to work. Now when he wasn't the owner like he is now, he didn't work maybe as much. But the dude's still a husband and father. But that dude didn't like sleep, and he's
Right.
doing everything. And I think that was part of the reason why he sold it is
Yeah.
because he's like trying to find somebody, but he man just he's like dude, it wore him out. And
Yeah.
and I don't know his whole deal. He knows how to do it all, but I don't think he can just do it at his house anymore. I don't know the whole thing, but he still buys from them. They're in there because that spinnerbait of his, I might have caught a fish or two from it.
Yeah. I still throw his Real Deal jig. Actually, I talked to him the other day trying to get some more tungsten jigs.
Yeah.
And I think he has a way to get him or something. I'm still waiting back. Yeah, I mean, those tungsten, ounce and a half tungsten, are sweet for punching grass and stuff. They're small.
Nice. Well, hey, before we close this up, we're 50 minutes in. I try to keep it under the hour. We can probably go longer, but I'm going to try to keep it under the hour. Anybody that you'd like to say thanks to, someone that was an impact on you to where you're at today, and it don't even got to be fishing, but is there anybody out there that just comes to your mind?
Wow. Well, you got to have a supportive wife to fish
Yeah.
as much as you fish. We've been married. You know, uh, we got married in '02, and I won a BFL regional in '06, and that was pretty nice. So she's like, "Oh, this fishing's okay." So, uh, but I mean that, and just I've had all kinds of people in my life growing up. I mean, of course you got your dad. I mean, he kind of got me into fishing and all that, and then another guy that was I still kind of look up to today is my old football coach, Don Campbell. You remember him?
I know
They call
Don.
him.
I know his son Chris. I've met
Yeah,
Don once, but I know
yeah,
Chris. But yeah, Don, man, which you were part of that good. Were you part of that good Sheridan run then?
yeah, yeah. Well, we
Okay.
went. We were 0-10 my sophomore year. The Sheridan was on a 27-game losing streak, and Don Campbell come in, and we went 7-3-1 or 7-2-1, made the playoffs, and lost to Win, who won the state championship. We lost to Win by just I hate to even get into it, but
Yeah.
they had we lost to them on the last minute of the game on a pitch out. We had the quarterback pitched it off his knee. He should have been called down. The guy they had running backs. I think went on to go Division One. The guy took it to the house and also when he was running it, it was blatant blocking the back, and ref didn't call it. So there's two things happened on that long run that beat us. But so then the next year we end up going 10-0. We won conference. Went to the playoffs. We won our first game against Truman, and then we got matched up with Arkadelphia, and we ended up playing. It should have been a home game at our field, and our Don said, "No, let's just play it at Henderson State." We played it at the Henderson State Stadium, and it was Arkadelphia. It was a home game for Arkadelphia, but we had the whole town of Sheridan there. I mean, it didn't really matter. Arkadelphia was freaking loaded. I don't know if you were around to
No,
remember.
I was I know I just know so much history about it. That was I'm trying to think of that coach's name. That was Arkadelphia's run. What was that coach's name?
Don Outlaw.
That's it, Outlaw. Oh, Outlaw. Yes.
Quarterback, they had running backs, they had everybody, and we smashed them in the mouth, man. That was our deal. We did the wing tee. Just if you watched DMRO videos, you'd be like, "Oh my god, the way these firing off the ball,
Uh-huh.
it's unreal." They don't kids today don't fire off the ball; they play patty cake.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
There's more athletes and stuff. But you need to go, and I'll send you a video to watch, and you'd be like, "Oh my gosh!"
No, I
Because
know.
we were all,
I coached with he was an assistant of Dawn at Wynn. Okay, He's now the head coach at Haskell, Mike Guthrie. But when we were at Haskell together, I was at Haskell for 2 years, and we weren't running. He's now running Don's offense, I'm pretty sure. But
Yeah.
we were spread there. I brought the spread there. They were Jimmy Parker or yeah Red Parker. Red Parker. I came in. We did the spread. But whatever. But like when he brought out all that old Don film with D'Angelo Williams and all them. But D'Angelo was great. But like what you're talking about, the
Yeah.
linemen and the like, just how violent. And I'm not gonna say like violent as in like a war, but dude, they just come off.
Oh, I'll send you a video. It's on YouTube. I'll send you a clip to watch.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we ended up losing to Arkadelphia, and they ended up winning the state championship. And we were 3A and 5A, biggest classification back then.
Yep.
And Arkadelphia was the number one team in the state, ranked over the 5A, 4A, everybody. I mean,
Yep.
Outlaw went on to coach in Texas, and there were several of those guys that went D1 football, I think, off that team. But we lost like 32-21 or something like that. We had them down. I mean, we had them on their heels, and we just couldn't. Athletically, we just couldn't stay in the game in the long run. But they deserved it. You know, it was just pretty crushing to. And my junior year, Wynn went on to win the state title, and they played the team we beat in the championship game. I'm like, come on, man. You know, it was brutal. Sheridan only had like 2 or 3 winning seasons, and since my senior year in high school, it's been like not 40 years, but pretty. We're pushing it, getting close. 30-something years. I'm like, they got a good coach now, and he's running the spread and doing some things, and he's got the winning formula, with how to do things and building a culture and all that. So I hope it works out. He's got a really good resume from everywhere he's been, So
it's been tough. It's been tough. It's been tough at Sheridan, man. Like one of the things I just heard, and I know you're down there, and I know it's growing right now, which is good. It seems like it's growing. I drove through there to go to the beach recently, and I guess you drive through there to go down to Florida, Alabama. And I've not been through there in a while, and I just saw all the houses, so I was surprised by that. But Sheridan's district's so big.
Right.
It's always was hard to get all the kids, I guess, to come up there in the summer. They're working, might be a drive, and so this kind of what I always heard was the summer was hard.
And we play 5A in every sport except football.
Yep.
Which how that works, but really we're playing teams we shouldn't be playing. I mean,
and it goes back to that. If Sheridan was one down, that 3-7's all of a sudden a 7-3. Like it's crazy how that happens.
It really, I don't understand. I mean, we're got to go to Marion tomorrow night, and they're loaded from what I hear. And then we got to play Benton, our last game of the year, and they're like blowing people out right and left. Got a D1 running back, signed to the Hogs. My son's like, "Oh God, I don't have to tackle Braylon Russell. I don't want to." I'm like, "Just aim for his feet, grab his something." I don't know, brother. That's a tough one when. I don't know how you're going to tackle a dude like that, but
yeah, Braylon's pretty big. He's big and strong, but hey, just go after him. I mean, hey, the thing is, he gets to say he tackled a Razorback.
Just tuck and roll, buddy. I don't know. Great.
But man, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. This is some good stuff here. We talked about fishing. We talked about a little bit about you, and I appreciate it, man. Thank you for coming on, and man, we'll stay in touch. And anybody, I always say this at the beginning, anybody have any questions or comments, go for me or Jamey down below. I'm going to have in the description, and this podcast I know is on all the platforms, and I'm going to probably say this in the intro, but I'm going to have description, the links to Jamey's website. There's also a product code you can use Fish Coach to save. Is it 10%, Jamey, or?
Yeah, you used Jimmy's code there. And just order for me, and that way I can help Jimmy out with all his endeavors on social media.
Yeah, appreciate it. And guys, thank y'all very much. And hey, we will see you on the next one.